Hey,
What?
I just want to take another look at you.
Hey, what's up everyone? It's Ryan here from The Y, and today we're gonna be taking a look at one of the best love stories ever made, A Star is Born. Before this film came out, people who saw Lady Gaga in American Horror Story knew she could act. But for the general public, this movie was definitely her coming out party. And what a perfect coming out party it was. So sit back, relax, and enjoy 30 facts you didn't know about A Star is Born. A Star is Born was dedicated to Elizabeth Kemp, the acting teacher and a mentor for both Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, who sadly passed away before the film came out. Not only was this movie special for Cooper, as it was his directorial debut, I'd venture to say it also holds a special place in his heart because of the character he portrayed. As you know, his character in the film, Jackson Maine, was a severe addict, and at one point in Bradley Cooper's life, he was as well. Much like Jackson, Cooper said that during those years, he always felt like an outsider and lived in his head. He constantly embarrassed himself, and one time at a party, he even smashed his head into concrete just to prove how tough he was. But unlike his character, Bradley Cooper quit all drugs and alcohol at the age of 29 and never looked back. So you could say that by playing Jackson, Cooper was tapping into what his life could have looked like had he never gotten sober. This was the fourth rendition of A Star is Born in US history. The original story was conceived in 1937 and featured Janet Gaynor and Frederick March in the lead roles. Then, the first remake was made in 1954 by director George Cukor and starred Judy Garland and James Mason. Fast forward to 1976, and Frank Pearson revived the story yet again, this time with Barbra Streisand and Chris Christopherson as the star-crossed lovers. And finally, of course, you had the most recent 2018 adaptation with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. Surprisingly, even though the story's been retold over and over through the course of 80 years, it's largely stayed true to its original form. A Star is Born always begins with the male lead, a famous singer or actor in the case of the first two renditions, who is battling an addiction to alcohol and a declining career. He then meets the female lead, who has all the talent but just hasn't broken through yet. The two strike up a relationship wherein he uses his connections to help grow her stardom, while at the same time a budding romance between the two begins to develop. Their relationship eventually leads to marriage, but all the while his addiction worsens. At the same time, the female lead star begins to burn brighter than her now husband's, and things finally come to a head at an awards ceremony where he drunkenly embarrasses her. After, he understands the gravity of his addiction, and she vows to help him. And things look to be getting better for a while, except for the 1976 version, as there were no attempts to quit alcohol in that rendition. So, with things looking up for a while, the man trips up again and realizes that things will never change and that he has now become a burden. Thus, he commits suicide. Jackson's downfall and eventual death was foreshadowed many times in the film. The first warning sign appears at a red light when Jackson sees a billboard with 4 nooses. The next bit of foreshadowing takes place when Jackson is undergoing counseling, as he divulged how he tried to hang himself with the belt at the age of 12.
So I took one of his belts and put it around the ceiling fan and tried to do the deed.
The final piece of foreshadowing comes in the scene where Allie's father Lorenzo is viewing Jack's record collection.
Jack, that's like an incredible collection of vinyl you have in there.
Take whatever you want, it's yours.
Jack tells him to take whatever he wants, which of course could just be a nice gesture. But what you may not know is that one of the major warning signs of suicide is giving away personal belongings. As this was Lady Gaga's first major role in a movie, it should come as no surprise that she wanted to keep a bunch of memorabilia to remember the whole experience. Items that Gaga took home with her include Jackson's beige shirt, Allie's songwriting notebook, and a bottle of Mr. Bubble from the bathtub scene. What's crazy is that before Sam Elliott even signed on to the film, Cooper had already decided he was gonna model Jackson's voice on his accent.
Or maybe it's because we look like a father and son duo.
Sam Elliott grew up in California, but his mother is from Texas. So Cooper saw his voice as the perfect hybrid accent for an aging country musician. Achieving this feat meant that Cooper had to practice the accent with his dialect coach for 4 hours a day for many, many months.
Are you showing me your nose right now?
Yeah.
You don't have to show it to me. I've been looking at it all night.
Oh, come on.
Oh, I'm
You
going
know
to be
you're
thinking
not.
about your nose for a very
You're
long
full of
time.
shit.
Originally, the drag queens had little to no dialogue at all. But after seeing just how naturally funny and entertaining they were, Cooper decided to let them improvise many of the lines. The drag queen who played Emerald even said that none of her original lines made it into the film, and that they were all actually improvised.
What do you want me to play?
I don't care, just look at me while you do it.
The last song that Lady Gaga performs, I'll Never Love Again, was emotional for a reason that's absolutely heartbreaking. Around 30 minutes before filming of the song, she got a call from her best friend, Sonia Durham, who was dying from cancer. Things really didn't sound good, so she immediately got in her car to go see her. But Lady Gaga never got the chance to see her best friend again, as she missed her by about 15 minutes. After laying at her bedside with her husband and son for a while, she went back to the set and still had to perform. But as Lady Gaga said, all I wanted to do was sing. I'll never forget that day. It was a really special scene, and I'll always remember that moment. Traditionally, with musicals, tracks are pre-recorded and then the actors lip-sync the songs when it comes time to film. But as soon as Lady Gaga joined the movie, she made it crystal clear they were going to perform everything live.
We'll do it live! F it! Do it live!
Making the film through this method is certainly more difficult, especially when you talk about recording everything that goes into a song and then mixing it all together. But in the end, I think the authenticity it added to the film was 100% worth it. From the very beginning, Bradley Cooper believed in Lady Gaga and knew she was the perfect fit for the role. But not everyone shared the same sentiments, which was the case for Warner Bros. Executives, who cited her lack of experience. But all that changed after the two performed a screen test that highlighted their outstanding chemistry. And after that, all it took was a matter of seconds before the studio gave a resounding yes. It's hard to deny that the soundtrack to A Star Is Born was one of the best parts of the film. And I'm not just saying that, but I also have the facts to back it up. The soundtrack was the third best-selling album of 2019, got nominated for 7 Grammys, and even took home an Oscar for Best Original Song. It also topped the Billboard 200 charts and was Bradley Cooper's first charting, while it was Lady Gaga's 5th. The dog that Allie buys for Jackson is actually Bradley Cooper's dog in real life. His name is Charlie, and he's named after Bradley Cooper's late father, Charles Cooper.
Come here, Charlie. Come here.
One of the biggest roadblocks to getting the film made was producer John Peters. This is because of the fact that Peters held the rights to the movie, as he was the producer for the 1976 version. And due to his sexual harassment lawsuits and reputation as being a pain in the ass to work with, Warner Bros. Was very reluctant to deal with him. Eventually, they came to an agreement, but were legally obligated to put his name in the credits. Although they didn't give him the honor of an official PGA certification. Talking about Peters, Bradley Cooper said, "On the set, you have to create an environment where everybody feels safe, and there's no room for disrespect." Luckily, John wasn't there. And ironically, Bradley Cooper played Peters in the 2021 movie, Licorice Pizza.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Do you know who my girlfriend is?
Barbra Streisand?
By the end of the film, Lady Gaga had grown so attached to Allie that to release all her pent-up emotions, she had to dye her hair blonde the night that filming ended. Gaga also said she and Allie were nothing alike, as she's always been much more confident in her looks and talent than Allie ever was.
I don't sing my own songs.
Why?
I just don't feel comfortable.
if you were surprised to see Dave Chappelle in A Star is Born, you're not alone, cause at first, he never saw himself doing it either. Persistence by Bradley Cooper was the deciding factor, as he wound up calling Chappelle every 2 days before he finally agreed to take on the role, mostly to get Cooper to stop bugging him. Chappelle also said he never even read the script, so he probably didn't know that the name Noodles was based on his character's profession as a drummer. But it didn't matter, as the scenes involving his drumming were ultimately cut. At the start of the film, Ali sings the opening verses to Over the Rainbow.
And the raindrops tumble all around.
The brick wall and yellow lighting is a callback to The Wizard of Oz, as Dorothy was played by Judy Garland, the main actress in the 1954 version. The song itself also fits perfectly into the story, as the meaning boils down to having hope and a longing for something better than your current situation.
Hey Brian, I'm out. Find somebody else.
The first time Bradley Cooper saw Lady Gaga was actually very similar to the first time he saw her in the movie. It was at a cancer benefit that Cooper attended with his mom, and Lady Gaga was the surprise musical guest. She sang La Vie en Rose, the same song from the movie, and Cooper almost instantly envisioned her as the lead lady to A Star is Born. The very next day, he called up her agent, and by the end of the phone call, was driving over to her place in Malibu. There, on her porch, eating leftover spaghetti and meatballs, he asked if they could sing a song together. Cooper recorded these next moments of them singing a duet to the Midnight Special, and by the end of it, I think he knew his hunch was right.
Let the midnight special shine on me.
As I'm sure many of you could tell, some of the concert scenes were filmed at the Coachella Music Festival, where Lady Gaga was the first female headliner in over 10 years. If you attended the festival in 2017, all you had to do was pay $10 and you would have been able to watch all the scenes being filmed. But of course, no recording devices were allowed. Additionally, nothing was played on the speakers to prevent any leaks, though fans close enough to the stage could actually hear the lyrics. To begin with, Jackson's suicide was going to be identical to the first two versions of A Star is Born, which would have seen him swimming out into the ocean to drown. This was foreshadowed by the lyrics of Shallow, and Jackson swimming in the pool while in rehab. Cooper said he even scouted out the exact beach that they were going to use for filming. But right before they were about to head there, Cooper had a vision of Jackson's suicide in the garage. Obviously, Jackson and Ali's relationship was the most important part of the movie, but Bobby was definitely a nice added element to the story who brought out a different side of Jackson. So it's pretty cool to know that the most emotional scene between them was unscripted. Elliot said, "We pulled into the driveway after having the words on the road, and then the door opened and Bradley just stood there, and he kind of hemmed and hawed, and I wasn't sure what was going to come out of his mouth. And then he said what he said, shut the door, and was out of the shot."
It was you I idolized, it wasn't Dad.
The first plans for an adaptation of A Star is Born can be dated all the way back to the 90s, with Will Smith being the frontrunner for the lead male, but nothing came of it, as he decided to do the movie Ollie instead. Then, in 2000, Jamie Foxx and Oliver Stone revived the idea for an adaptation which would have seen Aaliyah and Paul Walker as the two leads. Lauryn Hill and Mariah Carey were also considered for the part, and Alicia Keys is said to have turned down the role. But none of that mattered in the end, as plans fell apart and the idea was once again shelved. In 2011, after completing J. Edgar, Clint Eastwood was tapped to be the director for the new adaptation of A Star is Born. Everything was lining up, and Beyoncé was set to take on the role of Ali, with Bradley Cooper opposite her, until she unexpectedly got pregnant. From there, the project was delayed. They didn't know whether or not to recast the role. Clint Eastwood went off to work on another film and basically never came back. Then, a couple years later, Eastwood and Cooper teamed up to do American Sniper, and during promotion for the movie, one night they had the pleasure of watching Annie Lennox perform I Put a Spell on You. And like the song's title, Cooper was entranced, which prompted him to tell Clint, "Let's do A Star is Born." He replied, "That ship has sailed." After that night, Cooper knew he had to direct A Star is Born, and it's almost as if Clint Eastwood had passed the torch to the man he once picked to star in it. And not even 4 months later, Bradley Cooper was in talks to direct the film, and not long after, signed onto the remake. Interestingly enough, at first, Cooper wanted to stay on the directing side of things, and even had musician Jack White as his first pick for the male lead. But the studio rejected the idea, and it was agreed upon that Cooper would star in the movie as well. "Take it off," Bradley Cooper told Lady Gaga. And no, Cooper wasn't trying to get cancelled, he was talking about her makeup. Bradley Cooper wanted Ally to be as raw and authentic as possible, but that still didn't stop Lady Gaga from trying to sneak in a little bit of makeup once in a while. For Jackson, Cooper had to get a full body spray tan every day, along with menthol blown in his eyes, to give them a bloodshot and watery appearance. Just like Bradley Cooper and his character were similar in terms of their drug and alcohol addiction, Lady Gaga also shared some parallels to Ally. More specifically, the relationship between Ally and her father is based on aspects of Lady Gaga's relationship with her own dad in real life. So the scene where Ally talked with her dad about how many times he carried her piano up the stairs and sat with her while she wrote songs are all moments Lady Gaga actually shared with their own dad.
How many times did you sit there while I wrote a song?
A Star is Born premiered at the Venice Film Festival, where they received an 8-minute standing ovation after the screening. Something that was never explained, but interesting nonetheless, is that for all the promotional trailers and posters, Bradley Cooper was the top-billed cast member. But curiously, in the credits of the movie, the order had switched, with Lady Gaga now taking the top spot. Bradley Cooper originally considered a different ending in which Jackson and Ally would have performed Shallow together. After seeing him perform at the Desert Trip Festival, Bradley Cooper enlisted the help of Lucas Nelson, son of Willie Nelson, to teach him how to play the guitar. What followed was every night for about a year, the two would sit in Cooper's basement, play the guitar, and act out the process of becoming a musician. Nelson also immediately hit it off with Lady Gaga, which led to him helping to write 7 of the songs on the soundtrack, and is even credited with the guitar solo intro for the song Shallow. While in the heat of the moment, Bradley Cooper blurted out a line that actually hurt Lady Gaga's feelings.
You're just fucking ugly, that's
Hey,
all.
you got. I'm what?
You're just fucking ugly.
Get the fuck out!
Calling her ugly wasn't in the script, so the reaction on her face when Cooper said that was totally real. Through the course of nearly 2 decades of film development, many actors and actresses were considered for the 2 main leads. On the male side, there were talks with Christian Bale, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Cruise, and Johnny Depp, while the female lead included the likes of Jennifer Lopez, Rihanna, Shakira, Janelle Monáe, Selena Gomez, Demi Lovato, and Kesha. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to leave me a like and subscribe. Alright, till next time, peace everyone.